So this one is about easy and difficult. We come across so many things in our life which we find easy. Sometimes we find things difficult. And then there are times also that, that's easy now but difficult earlier, or difficult now and easy earlier. So imagine x-axis and y-axis. You can have on the x-axis as now and y-axis as earlier. And you can have easy and difficult and on both the sides. So easy, difficult. So you get easy now, easy earlier, easy now, difficult earlier, difficult now, easy earlier, difficult now, difficult earlier. So I was having this conversation with a colleague of mine, and we were working on another project called the Poetry Farm, where we are trying to depict poems and come up with interesting poetic renders. So this time around, she's experimenting with something again with calligraphy, like the last season, but with a different kind of a brush or a nib or a pen with a different kind of a nib. And when we were having this conversation, we just casually were discussing, because the nib is slightly peculiar in its shape, as you can see it in the image. I asked, how was the experience of using this kind of nib? Because for so long a period of time, you've been used to a certain kind of holding the pen and using it in a certain manner. While it may seem simple, but I think it's difficult. I mean, it seems difficult because this is a new experience. And there was this whole conversation we were having, and then suddenly we stumbled upon an insight. And the insight was that, is the experience of doing something as easy or difficult the actual experience, or what are the ingredients that give rise to the feeling, the first person sensory experience of easy or difficult of doing it? So an insight that came up was that while even before she could order that new pen with the new kind of nib, she was looking at the various reviews of the nib, and some of the reviews that she got on her timeline had extremely positive reviews. So then it just occurred to me that, is it the case that as you started actually, the first moment that you put the nib on the paper or the canvas, and then you started working with it, navigating your first few letters, first few words, is it the case that because you read very positive reviews, even if there was difficulty coming in initially, you were trying to map the feltness of difficulty back to other person's experience of it being so fantastic? So let me illustrate it in a different way. So imagine an x-axis and a y-axis. On the x-axis, you have feeling it's easy or feeling it's difficult, and it's getting mapped onto positive reviews. So let's say on the y-axis, you have extremely positive reviews and extremely negative reviews. Is it the case that sometimes, while we have the first person experience of doing that and we find it extremely difficult, but because we have those reviews, because we have seen that other people have been able to do it so easily and they have positive reviews of it, we are trying to map our difficult experience, and it somehow maps and stretches perhaps towards it being not so difficult. So while it is difficult, but we under experience the difficulty, or in some way. And sometimes it could be the case that we find it easy, but then because other people have given negative opinions, we are able to map it in that direction. Let me illustrate it in a different way. Many a times, today we see that a lot of people in the world are talking about doing meetings in a different way. I used to joke some time back that, you call up anybody today, and not today in COVID time, but before COVID times, you call up anybody and the chances are that the person will invariably respond by saying, I'm in a meeting. We know from experience in reading and talking to people that so many meetings are actually unproductive in some sense, or underproductive in some sense. And there are a lot of researches happening as to why it is the case. But just to tie it back to what we were saying, so sometimes it happens that you throw open a question in a meeting, and there is an important question that needs to be addressed, and it belongs to the terrain of discovering something new. But then somebody says something, and even if you had it in, so imagine, we are all talking right now, and I throw a question, and as soon as I throw a question, you may or may not have an answer. Or even if, let's say you have an answer, and suddenly somebody who's higher in authority, or who's more confident, or who's the first to go at the question says something as X, but then what you had actually thought of what you felt after listening to the question was opposite to this person. Now, sometimes or most times, a lot of people are not able to then put forth their point because they get anchored to what is being said. And it is sometimes the case that because somebody has anchored the whole conversation initially in a certain direction, other people just follow the line. Now, of course, sometimes you follow the line because you've exhausted yourself from past appeals to reason, or you believe that just doesn't matter, so on and so forth. So we can get into in a separate episode on meeting that we will have. But coming back, the whole idea being that our moment to moment experience of things, people, situations have a lot of factors. And one of the factors could be our allegiances to the influencers that we believe in, that we trust. And if they are veering in a certain direction, we try to veer, we try to map, we try to stretch ourselves in that direction. And sometimes, of course, we are successful, sometimes we are not, because it is well the case sometimes that the influencer says that, this was a really nice experience, you should try this, it's a brilliant thing. And you go and try it and you don't find that as the same experience, even despite stretching it. So, in fact, here it's also interesting to point out that a lot of marketing relies on getting influencers to talk about positively about the product. And we know from our experience that how there is a yawning and growing gap between the promise versus the delivery. So that's one aspect of the easy and difficult. Another way to depict the same grid could be, your first few experiences are easy or difficult, but you are now wanting to map it to easy or difficult. You want to feel it as easy. You want to be at a stage to make it easy or report it's easy or difficult. So you try very hard. So imagine x-axis as feeling easy, difficult, and y-axis as wanting to feel easy, difficult because of one's own requirement or one's need to map it to their influencers or somebody else, not necessarily influencer, somebody else whom you want to map it to. So sometimes it is the case that you feel it is easy, but you're not able to map it. Sometimes, as in you're not able to map it too easy. And sometimes it is the case that you feel it's difficult and you're not able to map it to easy. So you get in, all four quadrant. Feel easy, want easy, feel easy, want difficult, feel difficult, want easy, feel difficult, want difficult. And sometimes we are able to map and sometimes we are not able to map. Another way to look at this would be, you feel easy or difficult, but you report it as easy or difficult. So sometimes we want to report things to people, hey, this is very easy for me, I can just do it. And sometimes you want to deliberately show how much of effort and Herculean task you've taken in order to accomplish something. So even if it had been relatively easy for you or me, but we go on and report, oh, how difficult it was. You just don't know how difficult it was. So we have all these things that we feel easy, report easy, feel easy, report difficult, feel difficult, report easy, feel difficult, report difficult. Another small nuance here is we have this interesting peculiarity of wanting to belong to some group, some identities, and sometimes you want to stand out in some way. Now, the way you stand out is by demonstrating that you have something that others don't, that you can, that some others cannot. So, this easy difficult also has this interesting nuance where it is the case that sometimes you imagine on the x-axis you have can do something, cannot do something, and y-axis you want others to be able to do, as in they can do something, they cannot do something, and you want that as a state, they can or they cannot. Sometimes it is the case that you want others to be able to do things, so you feel that if you can do it, they should be able to do it. And that's where sometimes you find that, aren't you able to understand this much? How can you not do this? This is so easy. I can do it. I can show it. I have done it, right? So you can, others can. And there are cases where you can do it and you don't want others to be able to do it. So that is a state where you want them to be in the state of you can't and I can. So that's cases where you want to demonstrate how unique you are or so. And similarly, we have all the four quadrants. Sometimes you can't do it, and when you see that the other person can do it, you just don't want them to be able to do it because that might make you feel inferior. in some cases. And sometimes you're not able to do it, and the other person is also not able to do it. So you get both the can't kind of quadrant. We'll expand on this a little later. That's it.